I'm Katie from HeartsContentFarmhouse.com. Today I want to show you how to make a mango hand soap bar using a mango butter, avocado oil, a really nice mango fragrance, and a pretty color. Oils that we're going to use today are the three main soap making oils, which are coconut, palm, and olive oil. Then we're going to add mango butter, which is going to help this bar be really moisturizing and help keep it harder. We're also going to do avocado oil, which is going to soften it somewhat, but is a really moisturizing oil. The fragrance that I picked for today is called Mango Mango. It's a brambleberry fragrance, and it's a really good fragrance, really fruity and tropical. And since I wanted to keep this beginner friendly, I didn't want to do a floral fragrance, which makes your soap a little bit harder to work with. We are going to do a simple swirl. It's going to be pink and white, but if this is your first time doing soap, I would recommend you just stick to one color. You're going to need some type of mold in which to hold your soap. I'm using this 10-inch silicone loaf mold. You could also use individual molds, which are sometimes easier to work with, but they don't let you do a swirl. Or you can do something as simple as a box lined in parchment paper. Today we're going to do color in this soap. So I have these little packets of soap colorant that I get at Brambleberry. They're really inexpensive because you just need a really tiny amount. And we are going to use this rubbing alcohol in a spray bottle. You can get that at any drugstore. Just pour it into a spray bottle. It's totally optional. All it does is it keeps your soap from forming a white layer of ash on top, which is in no way dangerous. It just doesn't look really pretty. Since this is a hand soap and it's going to be out around the house, the appearance of it is important to me, so I'm going to do the rubbing alcohol spray. And two important things that you might not have for soap making is a stick blender and a digital scale. They are essential to making soap properly. They're not very expensive and they are handy to have around the house. So if you have all those supplies, the oils, you can go ahead and get started, and let me show you how to do this soap, and I will share the recipe with you in the description.
So the first step in any soap making is going to be to measure out your lye and water and then combine them. You want to do that first to give it adequate time to cool down for your soaping. So this is 9 to 12 ounces of water. Then in a separate cup, you measure out your lye. For this recipe, it is 4.94 ounces. It has to be exact. You combine your lye and water always by adding your lye to the water. Just remember, snow floats on the lake. That's a good way to have you add things in the proper order. Lye added to your water. I stir them with a butter knife just to make sure everything dissolves, and then set it aside in a safe place where no one can reach it to cool. I weigh my oils out directly in the pot that I'm going to melt them in. I just zero out my scale in between each addition. Here we're doing 3.5 ounces of mango butter, 3.5 ounces of avocado oil, 9.625 ounces of coconut oil, 9.625 of palm oil, and 8.75 of olive oil. Again, all of this is in the description, and I also have a printable for it on my blog. So weigh them out one by one, and once all of them are weighed, you can just heat them up on your stove. So I am going to go ahead and put those onto my stove, and when they're melted, they look just like any old pot of oil. So you want to keep stirring until everything is dissolved completely. It should be totally translucent, and then you want to let it heat until the temperature of your oils measures around 140 degrees. That just makes sure everything is properly melted and that it will incorporate into your soap batter correctly. So I've checked my temperature, it's 140. Now I set everything aside to cool. That's going to take about 2 hours. So once everything has cooled down to about 110, 120 degrees, I come back to make my soap. Before you combine your lye water and your oils, you have to have everything else ready to go, because once you combine those, it's going to start setting up. So any color that you want, go ahead and disperse it in a little tiny bit of your oil so that it dissolves. Any fragrance, have it out, your tablespoon out, your mold prepared. If you're going to line it with paper, go ahead and do that now. For the silicone mold, I don't line it, so I just take it out and have it ready. Pour your lye water directly into the pot with your oils and start blending with your stick blender. This recipe is going to come to trace relatively quickly. I prefer a thinner trace, so I'm going to stop after about 2 minutes of blending. Again, when trace is reached, you'll see that it's a little bit opaque and that your stick blender leaves a trail when you lift it. I always, if I'm going to do 2 colors, I go ahead and divide them And I do my color first, and then I'll add my fragrance. So I just want a little bit amount of color for this one. I want a really subtle swirl. So I'm adding just a small amount of pink to one portion of my soap. The other one I'm going to add titanium dioxide so that it's white instead of that sort of off-white color. And now I'm going to add my fragrance. Never, after you've added your fragrance, never blend it in with your stick blender. Just stir that by hand. To do a swirl, you just alternate how you dump this in, and then take a long like cake tester or bamboo stick and use it to swirl all around. Go ahead, and if there's anything left, pour it on top and then smooth it out. Once this is done, this is a totally optional phase, but I like to spray the top with rubbing alcohol, which is just plain rubbing alcohol in a spray bottle, coat the top, and then that keeps it from getting that whitish ash layer. It cures for 24 hours. I just put mine in a turned off oven that helps insulate the heat. 24 hours later, I unmold it. Standard thickness for soap bars is 1 inch. So if you're making this to sell, you do want to measure them out and have them be the standard thickness. I don't usually sell mine. I just give it as gifts and use it around the house. So I just do it by, I just eyeball it. And there you go.